Welcome back. The South African Heritage Resources Agency is in deep trouble. The agency is mandated to look at the identification, conservation, preservation and management of heritage resources with national significance. Earlier last week, the chairperson of the council responsible for the agency, Prof Samadoda Fikeni, briefed Parliament's Arts and Culture Portfolio Committee on the state of affairs of the entity. Professor Fikeni was at pains telling MPs that the agency was going through a management crisis which has left it dysfunctional. It has been served by 2 chief financial officers in a period of 2 months, and both have resigned. A supply chain manager also resigned within the said period despite being promised a massive increase in salary. The contract of the CEO expired in February this year but continued to work on the basis of a verbal agreement. To get a better understanding of how things work at the South African Heritage Resources Agency, we now cross live to the chairperson of the council, Professor Samadoda Fikeni, in our Pretoria studio. Good morning, sir, and welcome.
Good morning, Mkokeli.
Professor, at the Portfolio Committee meeting, it became clear that the South African Heritage Research Agency is dysfunctional. There is lawlessness and anarchy. How would you describe the situation in your own words?
I do think that currently SARA is going through challenges because precisely as reflected in the Auditor General's report and in our report, problems over the years before we came in were allowed to go on. And now we've put measures to turn the situation around now that we do have a clearer sense of what is happening. We do have 3 intervention methods that we have. 1, the forensic investigation, because we believe that there is a reasonable ground that there is more in terms of irregularities than reflected by the AG.
Professor, before we look at the turnaround strategy that you have, the plan that you have, it appears the rot of maladministration and the violation of the Public Finance Management Act begins right at the top with the CEO and senior management. What is the CEO's status of employment at the moment?
At the moment, the CEO has taken on a sick leave. At the same time, there is a process to investigate whether there is no misconduct on her part, which may lead to charges if such investigation yields such an indication of misconduct. So she's not in the office at the moment. It's an acting person who is in place. And secondly, we do have managers like the HR manager who has just resigned, the corporate services manager who has retired, the CFO who has not been replaced. We do have an interim CFO at the moment. But the forensic investigation will look into that maladministration. We also are seeking the legal advice on the CEO's contract, because what we have before us is an advert that indicated a 3-year contract, but the CEO has insisted that she has an oral or verbal agreement with the previous chairperson to have a 5-year contract. And we do not have at the moment valid, convincing documentation. We've asked the CEO to provide us such.
Let's talk a bit about SARA's financial status. The AG's report for the 2010-2013 financial year paint a picture of total disregard for the PMFA. Just how bad is the situation and how are you dealing with that?
We have put a number of unprecedented policies to deal with the controls in the organization. But we've come to a painful realization that even with those policies in place, which were confirmed with the AG that they are in place, the compliance with those and the adherence to those policies is still a problem, which points then to the capacity of management in those responsible areas. And also the problem of succession, that a person who resigns in February or January would still not be replaced in August. It tells you again the capacity problems.
According to a report in possession of the Portfolio Committee, SARA received foreign funding from the Dutch government during the 3-year term of the current CEO. Has that funding been accounted for?
That funding partially has been accounted for, and we have pointed the forensic investigation to look not only at the Dutch funding for the underwater heritage, but also to all other donor funding, so that the image of SARA is cleaned, and when we go back to such donors, we do not have issues in terms of reputational risk.
Let's move on to SARA's provincial structures. With a chaotic situation like that at head office, what is happening at SARA's provincial structures?
Well, it varies. The good thing that we have done, in spite of all the challenges that you see, is that the provinces have been assessed, because in the devolution of function, once provinces are capable of managing their own resources and of declaring the sites, SARA is supposed to assess and give them permission to do that. Provinces such as the Western Cape, the Eastern Cape, and others partially have been given such licenses, which means, in spite of all these challenges, that is one positive development which has allowed the provinces to continue. But again, we can't run away from the fact that SARA, which is overseeing these provinces, must be in a stronger position. Hence, a turnaround is a matter of urgency.
Talking about a turnaround, Professor, with a management structure rotten from the top, how do you hope to implement a turnaround strategy?
Well, I do think that with the number of resignations and the vacancies, it actually is a blessing in disguise, in a sense that we have to move swiftly to fill those positions with credible, solid persons in those various areas, and ask for expertise during the selection process to assist in sifting and in assessing those persons who will be employed. And secondly, we have invited the department to set up a task team, and also second, some of the specialists in the affected areas. So that turnaround starts with the filling of the positions and with the coming in of the seconded persons. I've approached Artscape and Iziko museums to second their CFOs to assist us with the finance unit in actually making sure that the control systems are in place.
Professor Fikeni, we've got to leave it right there. Professor Fikeni is the chairperson of the council responsible for the South African Heritage Resources Agency. Thank you very much for coming through. Unfortunately, we have to leave it right there. And until we meet again, thank you very much. Join us again. Oh, we're not having a program tomorrow because of an extended morning live broadcast. Enjoy the rest of your day. And until we meet again, goodbye.